it's Alyssa and welcome back to video 2 of the Faith and Logic series. Thank you for your patience. There's just been a lot going on. I have a couple of guests. I have my dogs in my lap and they will be here for the duration of this video. So hopefully they cooperate. So video 2 is about why the majority of people cannot be majority opinion cannot decide what truth is for us. So a lot of people don't really have a baseline for truth other than to follow the crowd. And the majority of people can't be wrong if they think something's true, right? Well, wrong. So most people believe that truth is decided by the majority. But yeah, what if I told you the majority is usually wrong? So, I mean, we have several case examples throughout history. Most people throughout history believe Earth was flat. Most people believe that diseases were caused by bad air instead of germs. And most people today believe whatever they hear first without questioning it. Or they believe what their bubble tells them is true, the people that they trust, even if they are just completely wrong. I mean, the majority has been wrong countless times throughout history, and it's going to continue to be true that the majority is wrong. I mean, think about what the majority of people idolize, what most people obsess about. Are they things that have merit? Are they people that have merit? No, typically not. They are the shiny objects or the this is Bender. They are the foods that appeal most to our addictive tendencies and not so much like our health or the things that are good for us. And so yeah, we don't really want to follow the majority. There is a reason for that, and that is because most people's minds are not they haven't been trained, they haven't had the opportunity to cultivate the ability to use logic, critical thinking, or disciplined reasoning in how they come to their conclusions, or they decide what they want to do with their lives, with their time, with their thoughts. So today we're going to break down why truth is not a democracy, objective proof that most people aren't rational thinkers, why even high IQ individuals can lack real reasoning skills, and why truth must be based on reality and not popularity. So before we start, if you want to comment below, do you think the majority determines truth? Happy to discuss. So yeah, we have a few more examples of how society's been wrong. I mean, again, we have the people believed that the sun revolved around the earth. We were the center of the universe. We believed that bleeding people out was a cure for diseases. And another one, people have believed that women and slaves were property with lives worth less than a man's life. We don't really want to think that, the fact that most people think something just doesn't make it true. And today we frequently see the same problem. Most people believe whatever their political side tells them. I have often been surprised how I can get someone with views, very, very polarized views politically, to agree with the policies of their opposing party if I just take away where the information came from. If I just give them kind of the general perspective, they agree that maybe the policy is rational, but the emotion gets in the way of their logical thinking, and so they can't be critical of their own party, and they can't at all think anything good comes from the other party. So that's one example. Most people trust headlines without reading the full article. So, we know that thumbnails, we know that titles are intended to snag that attention. They're kind of, clickbait. But you wanna get more than just that clickbait moment in order to be able to intelligently interact with new content, new information. Most people form their opinions based on their feelings and not on facts. So the majority has pretty much always been wrong, with slight exception to some extent for, like, okay, I will believe that, like, most people I think crumble cookies taste good. They, like, I will trust the majority opinion to some extent with, like, my, like, I don't even know if that's true. Like, with things like they're not bad cookies, so I can go to Yelp, and I guess I'm a little bit on the fence on this point. Like, do I trust the majority with pretty much any information? For me personally, like, I will definitely choose a restaurant with 4.9 stars over one that has 3.2. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the food is the best. It doesn't mean that, it just means that, like, that restaurant has not dropped the ball in some major category. Like, I don't even know that I agree with my earlier statement that, like, the majority can tell me, certain foods are, like, the best foods. I don't think they can say that because, taste is so subjective. I mean, look at pizza. Like, some people like Chicago deep dish. Some people like thin slice. Some people maybe like cardboard pizza, and like, it's just, you can't really trust the majority with anything subjective, like, with things like, like taste in food, taste in, I guess, more subjective topics. And so there's that. But I will trust the majority if they're telling me, like, okay, this restaurant, they have bad service, they do this or that, because that's just, like, we may generally as a society have basic standards that I can subscribe to on what's good service. Like, are there bugs at the restaurant? Like, these are things I want to know. So that's something that I can use the majority opinion to help me on. I'm not saying that majority opinion isn't somewhat useful in certain contexts. It's just not what I want to decide important things on, because it's usually wrong. And there is a reason for that. Again, objective proof that people are not logical thinkers can be found on intelligence distributions. So when you think about it, the majority of people have an average IQ. So through IQ studies and cognitive function and research, there is actually an IQ bell curve, which shows that 68% of people fall between an IQ of 85 and 115. And within that range, you get basic reasoning, but within basic reasoning, you get mostly emotional / social thinkers. So people who make their decisions by proxy. They might defer to wiser people, or who they perceive as wiser people, which likely isn't wiser people, maybe just people they personally know or trust more. So you might get the people who worship their favorite celebrity. And if this is you, I am like not trying to dog you or insult you. I'm just trying to help you to see that, do you really, really want your decisions, any decision in your life made based on, like, a celebrity? I would question it. I would probably question that decision, because, celebrities are usually celebrities based on more social metrics, maybe not moral metrics, maybe not making the best decision metrics. In order to be popular in some sense, you basically have to stand for nothing. You have to be almost neutral. And so you may just not get the best guidance on becoming your best self from those types of, I guess, leaders. And maybe there are exceptions. I'm sure there are. I'm just saying, as an example, I would probably myself, like, I don't think we should put anyone on a pedestal. I think we should think critically about what everybody says. And so I would probably choose, though, if I was looking for a leader, someone with maybe more moral alignment, more moral leadership than maybe more popular leadership. Only 15% of people have an IQ score above 115. So, and 115 is where you start to get complex logic, philosophy, and abstract thinking skills. And finally, only 2% score above 130, and that's where high-level rational thought occurs. And that, I mean, what does this mean? Like, well, Alyssa, it's not really fair. I mean, those people are exceptional. Most people can't even aspire to that. Well, there's some truth to that. That said, it doesn't change the fact, like, fairness doesn't change that most people are not thinking like very critically about their life choices. And I think I would rather, in most cases, I would rather follow somebody who is thinking critically and has cultivated, like, we can discuss how IQ comes about. IQ, I believe, is like a combination of nature and nurture. And so, many of us are disadvantaged by our upbringings, by things that are out of our control. But we can totally adjust that and change it based on what we are feeding ourselves at a certain stage. Like, once it's within our control, are we spending our time reading? Are we spending our time engaging and learning about new things and stretching our minds? Or are we sitting on like TikTok and, doing the latest like dance thing? And nothing wrong with that. I actually believe that like dance and things like that have a place and have a function that's good for our mental health. So that's not to dog that either. But I'm just saying, like, are you surprised by how much time you spend on your phone when your phone alerts you every week? Like, maybe you need to invest your attention a little bit elsewhere in order to set yourself up better for some critical thinking skills. So again, what this means is that the majority of people do not think very deeply. They default to emotional reasoning. That makes me feel bad, so I don't like it, and I don't want to think about that. So I'm gonna think about donuts and and like people who tell me what I want to hear more than who are going to challenge me and help me grow. Most people follow groupthink instead of analyzing the facts. So like, because my group thinks something, like Lil Wayne is God, like I'm God, okay, Lil Wayne, like, that's my person. Like, you get different idols based on if you're not thinking critically and following, thinking about what you're putting in your mind and who you're surrounding yourself with. So, you can even set yourself up better by surrounding yourself with a better group, if you're gonna, acknowledge that you have some groupthink tendencies. But groupthink is generally not what you really want. And then finally, they trust authority blindly rather than questioning. So like the people who sit in the pews on Sundays, and because their pastor said it, it must be great. They're not like the Bible says, don't trust every spirit, but test the spirits. Like, I think we should always, you don't probably agree with everything your mother says. You probably don't agree. Like, we as humans, we shouldn't just sit and agree with anybody on everything. We should be like thinking critically and wondering about what we're hearing. Is this true? And that takes having your own definition and understanding of like the world around you that you have come to through critical thinking. But if you don't have that critical thinking skill cultivated within yourself, then you are going to trust authority blindly rather than questioning. And this isn't an insult. It's a reality of human cognition. We end up on a bell curve of intelligence. Now, there's one caveat, and that is that even high IQ doesn't guarantee logic. So, I mean, we're getting into a really narrow pool. Like, there are some really, really smart, book smart people who have no common sense, who aren't thinking logically. Like, you might think from this video or what I've just said, okay, so the smartest people should determine truth. Like we should just, this person has an IQ of 140, like they must know it all, right? Not necessarily. So IQ is not the same as rational thinking. Many high IQ individuals lack executive functioning, meaning that they struggle with organization, prioritization, or resisting impulsive thought. Think autism. These autistic people can have like a very, very narrow intelligence set, but not be able to like string together abstract reasoning, like understand the big picture implications of why things are the way they are. So they might be able to function really well as accountants or engineers, but when it comes to discerning truth, putting together cause and effect in other abstract ways, forget it. You could have a very low IQ and have a better chance, depending on where they are on the spectrum, of discerning like why things are the way they are. Some highly intelligent people fall into cognitive traps, like logical fallacies due to ego, upbringing, trauma, or social conditioning. So just because you're really smart doesn't mean you're not like subject to laziness or weaknesses or other things. And so like, you know, people can become cognitively lazy. And so you don't just want to take someone who like did really well and is in Mensa and then just, oh, well, they must be right. Like I think Einstein is a great example. Einstein was incredibly brilliant. I mean, discern truths about the universe that, you know, have changed the way we understand reality. But like, I understand that he sometimes missed paying his like electric bill. And I think he had some moral issues around women. And so you don't want to just defer to intelligence. You want to look at someone holistically. And we're not looking for idols. We're basically looking to take people off pedestals. So like, I guess Einstein would be a great example of someone with super high intelligence and good wisdom, good insight, but you know, some human weaknesses that I would think, you know, we all want to be growing and continuously throughout our lives, and so would have benefited him to continue to grow in other areas as well. And so, in short, high IQ does not equal high wisdom, and wisdom equals the ability to discern truth. So an example, aside from Einstein, a brilliant scientist can have emotional biases that cause them to ignore inconvenient truths. This happens sadly more than we probably even want to recognize. Tying in a little biblical truth, Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." So wisdom is not just intelligence, it is disciplined thinking. So circling it all back, why truth cannot be decided by popular opinion. If the majority determined truth, we'd still believe Earth was flat, germs don't exist, and slavery is morally fine. So in conclusion, truth is not democratic, and reality does not care how many people agree with something. It really doesn't. Exodus 23:2 says, "Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong." And we can even take that and extrapolate, like, don't follow the crowd when they're doing something dumb. I mean, they're actually, this turned out to be a false thing, but there used to be this Disney video about some lemmings, and the videographers, it turns out, had in order to create this Disney nature photography video and make it compelling, had forced these lemmings to jump off a cliff. And the nature documentary made it look like, oh, these lemmings will follow the crowd even to their demise. Now it turned out to be fraud, but it has a good principle. Don't follow the crowd to your demise, to your moral demise, to your intellectual demise, to your personal demise, to the demise of your identity. Think better, think more of yourself in that than that, in a non-arrogant way, but just have some self-respect. So if the majority was always right, the Bible would tell us to follow them. Instead, it warns us that they're usually wrong. And truth is found by those who seek it, not those who conform to whatever is most popular. And one other quick aside, this is consistent with the biblical story, the biblical narrative that literally we live in a fallen world where most people who don't know Jesus, like, this is a very stark reality, but like, okay, if we fell as a world, then most people don't know God. Most people are living out of fallen brokenness, and everybody is, even people who are Christians, but we have the Holy Spirit sanctifying us and helping us to grow. It is not in ourselves that we are growing. It is totally credited to the Creator, that anybody has a chance to thrive and flourish. But it makes sense that most people it would be better not to, I guess, follow the crowd, even in Christian circles. Like, my mom has told me this story about a man in her Bible study when she was younger who said something really harsh. She said, "I think there will be way fewer people in heaven than who are sitting in church pews." And this makes sense. The way of life is narrow and few ever find it. Wide is the way and wide is the road that leads to destruction. So these are all biblical principles. Don't follow the crowd. Don't follow the majority. So let's think about this logically. Again, most people, well, what are the lessons? We've already gotten there. What are the lessons now to be learned? Like, how can we take this and help us to change? Like, what can we do to adjust our behavior if we've historically been, following the crowd? So, step one, question everything. If most people believe it, ask why, and know that you can discern the truth within yourself. Like, I totally believe, especially if you have the Holy Spirit, that you can come to a truth just by giving yourself the space to think something through. Like, why are people jumping on the bandwagon to follow this certain person? Is it because this person is a particularly good leader? Is it because they're charismatic? Is it because they want to be like this person? Is it for a good reason? What is the motive? Why are people hating this person? Is it because they're saying things that they don't want to hear? Or is it because what the person's saying is false? Think critically, question everything, even your leaders, even church leaders, question what they say. If something raises a red flag in your mind, trust your intuition and start exploring. That'll lead you to either know yourself better and correct yourself, or to be able to say, this person said something that doesn't align with my truth, like not my truth, but the truth as I understand God's truth to be. Step two, study logic and reasoning. So there are literally principles. You can take courses online. You can probably find a university course. Learn how to think critically and analyze arguments. Don't just react emotionally to things. Think about, there are structured arguments. Like I said, there's here's a couple examples. Modus ponens, hypothetical syllogisms. There's a way to intellectually structure understanding people's arguments or positions. They're making an argument, and so you can start to think critically. And when people use logical fallacies in order to destroy someone else's argument or try to destroy it, you can recognize that as well. There's entire lists of different logical fallacies, like ad hominem, that's to the man, attacking the person rather than their argument. I've been dealing with that in my personal life. you can understand when people are using broken logic to destroy their quote opponent. And you can change. You can at least identify it and not do it yourself. The best way to change the world is to change yourself. So step 3 would be seek truth, not comfort. The truth is often unpopular and uncomfortable, but man, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. It makes me so uncomfortable to live in constant cognitive dissonance with reality. Like if I know something to be true and people are telling me, if they're telling me black is white, I just like die inside because I have such a strong idea. I've spent so much time in my personal life trying to discern what's right from wrong and what's true from a lie. And I have really strong like principles inside of me. And so when I'm having to live out of joint with that, it pains me. And I still don't understand why certain people I've encountered, I know why, it's an emotional thing, but it just pains me to think of people not seeing the truth and wanting to adjust so that everyone's healthier, because sadly, living out of line with the truth is death. It's pain. I mean, I know that it makes people sick, even if they're in denial and they believe completely that like that the sky is made of cotton candy, you know, like that. This is objectively untrue. Maybe it's a pleasant idea, but living out of line with reality is toxic to the person with the false beliefs. And so I genuinely believe that even if truth is painful, like believing that you have some growth to do, you have been doing illogical arguing, you've been harming people around you and accidentally with your behaviors, like you're gonna be a better friend, a better human being by living in line with the truth and saying, yeah, you know what, I got some areas to grow in and I'm gonna do that. And I hear you, friend. You know, if someone's speaking truth into your life, like that's literally gonna like make you a better person when you have people who are challenging you in the right ways. Matthew 7:13-14 says, I've already quoted this, wide is the road that leads to destruction and many enter through it, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life and only a few find it. So truth is never found by following the masses. It's found by searching beyond them. In conclusion, truth is not determined by the majority. Reality is real, no matter how many people agree or disagree. So please comment on this video. I'd love to interact with you on what I've said. Like and subscribe for more deep faith and logic discussions. And let's all stop following the crowd.